The small human colony of New Hope sat on the edge of Earth's territory. It was a peaceful place, full of families looking for a fresh start. Among them were the Johnsons, Mark, Sarah, and their curious 6-year-old daughter, Emily. Emily loved to explore. Her parents often found her wandering near the colony's borders, picking strange alien flowers or chasing small, six-legged creatures that looked like a mix between rabbits and lizards. Mark and Sarah always told her not to go too far, but Emily's spirit of adventure was hard to contain. One sunny day, Emily slipped away while her parents were busy in a greenhouse. She skipped along the familiar path, humming a tune she had learned in school. The violet grass tickled her ankles as she walked, and 2 moons hung low in the orange sky. Emily didn't know it, but she was heading straight for the invisible line that marked the border between Earth's territory and the vast galactic empire. To her, it was just another day of exploration. As she neared the border, Emily spotted something shiny in the distance. It sparkled in the alien sunlight, catching her eye. Without a second thought, she ran towards it, her pigtails bouncing with each step. High above the planet, a Galactic Empire patrol ship detected movement near the border. The captain, a stern alien with blue skin and 4 eyes, zoomed in on the readings. His thin lips curled into a frown as he saw the small human child crossing into Empire space. Intruder detected, he growled to his crew. Prepare to eliminate the threat. Back on the ground, Emily had just reached the shiny object. It was a strange crystal, unlike anything she had seen before. She picked it up, marveling at how it changed colors in her hand. Suddenly, the air around her began to shimmer. Emily looked up, confused. A large, dark ship appeared in the sky, its weapons pointed directly at her. Fear gripped her heart as she realized she was in danger. Emily turned to run, but it was too late. The Empire ship fired a single deadly shot. In a flash of bright light, Emily Johnson ceased to exist. The crystal she had been holding fell to the ground, cracking into 1,000 pieces. The Empire captain nodded with satisfaction. Threat neutralized, he reported coldly. Maintain border patrol. Hours passed before anyone in the colony realized Emily was missing. Mark and Sarah searched frantically, calling her name until their voices grew hoarse. Other colonists joined the search, combing every inch of the settlement and the surrounding areas. As night fell, a search party ventured closer to the border than ever before. That's when they found it, Emily's favorite hair ribbon, lying next to a scorched patch of ground and the shattered remains of an alien crystal. The grim reality of what had happened slowly sank in. Tears flowed freely as the news spread through the colony. Emily, sweet and innocent Emily, had been killed for simply crossing an invisible line. Word of the tragedy spread quickly. Within hours, it reached the colony's communication hub. The operator's hands shook as he sent the urgent message to Earth. Emergency alert. Human child killed by Galactic Empire forces on New Hope colony border. Unprovoked attack. Requesting immediate response. As the message raced across space towards Earth, the colony of New Hope fell into mourning. Parents held their children close, fear mixing with grief as they wondered what would happen next. Mark and Sarah Johnson sat in silent shock, unable to process the loss of their little girl. They couldn't have known that Emily's death would soon spark a conflict that would change the face of the galaxy forever. On Earth, military leaders received the alert. Faces grew grim as they read the details. Emergency meetings were called, and deep in secret bunkers, discussions began about a response that would shake the foundations of the Galactic Empire. The death of one small child was about to unleash a force the Empire never saw coming. Earth had been waiting, building, and preparing. Now, they had a reason to act. The sleeping giant was about to awaken, and the galaxy would never be the same. The news of Emily Johnson's death spread across Earth like wildfire. Within hours, every screen on the planet showed the same image. A smiling 6-year-old girl with pigtails, now lost forever. People gathered in streets and parks, their faces a mix of shock, grief and anger. How could the Galactic Empire be so cruel? How could they kill an innocent child? In New York, a crowd of thousands stood silent in Times Square, candles flickering in the night. In Beijing, millions of people wore black armbands, a symbol of mourning. In Lagos, prayer vigils filled the air with song and sorrow. World leaders scrambled to respond. The president of the United Earth Federation, Elena Rodriguez, called an emergency meeting of the Global Security Council. As she entered the underground war room, her usual calm demeanor was replaced by barely contained rage. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice tight with emotion, "today, we face the greatest threat to humanity since the Martian conflict of 2089. The Galactic Empire has shown its true colors. They are not the peaceful neighbors they claim to be. They are murderers of children." The room erupted in angry shouts and pounding fists. Admiral John Wei, head of Earth's Space Force, stood up. "Madam President," he said, his eyes blazing, "it's time. We must unleash the Dreadnought fleet." A hush fell over the room. For decades, Earth had been secretly building the largest and most advanced fleet in the galaxy. Hidden in underground bases, underwater hangars, and hollowed-out asteroids were 700,000 dreadnoughts, each more powerful than anything the Galactic Empire possessed. President Rodriguez nodded slowly. "You're right, Admiral. The time for hiding is over. Activate the fleet." Across the solar system, hidden doors began to open. In the ice caves of Europa, massive ships rose from their slumber. On Mars, entire mountains split apart to reveal gleaming warships. Asteroids in the belt cracked open like eggs, spilling out squadrons of fighters and destroyers. Earth itself seemed to come alive as oceans parted and continents shifted, revealing the true extent of humanity's secret arsenal. The sky filled with ships, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. People watched in awe as the fleet took shape above their heads. Many had no idea such power existed. Now, seeing it with their own eyes, they felt a mix of pride and fear. This was humanity's true strength, hidden for so long, now revealed in all its terrible glory. In orbit, Admiral John Wei stood on the bridge of the flagship, the ESS Avenger. At 15 kilometers long, it was the largest ship ever built. Its weapons could shatter planets. Its shields could withstand the heat of a sun. "Fleet status report," John ordered, his voice steady despite the weight of history on his shoulders. "All ships reporting in, sir," his second-in-command replied. 700,000 dreadnoughts ready for action. Support craft and fighters standing by. We await your command." John took a deep breath. This was the moment everything had been building towards. With a single word, he would unleash a force that could reshape the galaxy. "Attention all ships," he said, his voice carried to every vessel in the fleet. "This is Admiral Zhang. Today we go to war. Not for conquest, not for glory, but for justice. The Galactic Empire has taken one of our children. We will make them pay for every tear shed, for every dream lost." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Our mission is clear. We will strike at the heart of the Empire. We will shatter their fleets, break their defenses, and bring their leaders to justice. We fight for Emily Johnson, and for every human who has ever felt fear in the shadow of the Empire. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. And remember this: we are humanity. We have survived ice ages and asteroids, plagues, and world wars. We have reached for the stars and made them our own. The Empire thinks us weak. Today, we prove them wrong." John's voice rose to a thunderous crescendo. "For Earth, for humanity, for Emily." The cry was taken up by every ship in the fleet. For Earth, for humanity, for Emily. With a gesture from John, the massive fleet began to move. Engines flared to life, pushing against the darkness of space. The greatest armada in galactic history set course for Empire territory, vengeance burning in every heart. As the fleet disappeared into the depths of space, the people of Earth held their breath. The age of hiding was over. The time of reckoning had begun. As Earth's massive fleet of 700,000 dreadnoughts moved through space, the Galactic Empire remained blissfully unaware of the storm heading their way. On their capital world, Zor Prime, it was business as usual. Emperor HFY sat on his crystalline throne, his four arms resting on ornate armrests. His scaled skin shimmered in the light of three suns streaming through the palace windows. He was listening to a boring report about trade routes when an aide burst into the throne room. "Your Majesty," the aide gasped, all six of his eyes wide with fear. "We've detected a massive fleet entering our space." Emperor Xok sat up straight, his tail twitching with annoyance. "Impossible," he growled. "No race in the galaxy has a fleet large enough to threaten us." "Who dares?" The aide swallowed hard. It's the humans, Your Majesty." For the first time in centuries, Emperor Xok felt a chill of fear. "Show me," he commanded. A holographic display flickered to life in the center of the throne room. At first, it showed empty space. Then, ship after ship began to appear. Destroyers, cruisers, and massive dreadnoughts filled the display. There seemed to be no end to them. "By the first egg," Xok whispered. "How did they hide this from us?" Meanwhile, at the edge of Empire space, Admiral John Wei stood on the bridge of the HFY Avenger. He watched as the first line of Empire defense stations came into view. "All ships, battle formation," John ordered. "Prepare to fire on my command." The human fleet spread out, taking positions for the first strike. The Empire stations, caught off guard, scrambled to raise their shields. "Sir," a young officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Empire." Zhang nodded. On screen, the face of an Empire commander appeared, his expression a mix of fear and defiance. "Human vessels, you are violating Empire space. Retreat immediately or face destruction." Zhang's face hardened. "We are not here to retreat," he said coldly. "We are here for justice. Your empire killed an innocent child. Now you will face the consequences." Before the Empire commander could respond, Zhang gave the order. "All ships, fire at will." Thousands of energy beams lanced out from the human fleet. The Empire defense stations, their shields not fully raised, didn't stand a chance. In seconds, they were reduced to floating debris. As alarms blared across Empire space, the human fleet pressed forward. They encountered their first real resistance at a large Empire shipyard orbiting a gas giant. A fleet of Empire warships rose to meet them, their weapons charging, but they were outnumbered 100 to 1. "Launch fighters," Zhang ordered. "Cruisers, target their command ships. Dreadnoughts, take out that shipyard." Space lit up with weapons fire. Empire ships exploded left and right, unable to withstand the overwhelming firepower of the human fleet. The massive shipyard, pride of the Empire's naval production, crumbled under the assault of a dozen dreadnoughts. In less than an hour, the battle was over. Where there had once been a vital Empire military installation, there was now only floating wreckage. Back on Zor Prime, Emperor Xok watched the reports coming in with growing horror. How could this be happening? How could the humans, who they had dismissed as a minor annoyance, suddenly possess such power? "Your Majesty," his war minister said, voice shaking, "we've lost contact with 3 more systems. The humans, they're unstoppable." Xok slumped in his throne. For the first time, he realized the terrible mistake they had made. They had awakened a sleeping giant and filled it with terrible resolve. On the HFY Avenger, Admiral Zhang allowed himself a small smile. This was only the beginning. The Empire would pay for every human life they had ever taken, starting with little Emily Johnson. "Set course for the next target," Zhang ordered. "The Empire thought they could bully us, threaten us, kill our children without consequences. It's time they learned the truth." As the human fleet moved deeper into Empire space, leaving destruction in its wake, a message was broadcast on all frequencies. It was simple chilling and repeated in every language in the galaxy. We are humanity. You killed our child. Prepare for justice. The war had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet moved through space like a swarm of angry bees. Their next target was Krill 9, a major Empire military hub. As they approached, Admiral John Way studied the holographic map on the bridge of the EFS Avenger. Status report, John commanded, his voice steady despite the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. His second in command, Captain Lena Rodriguez, stepped forward. Sir, we're detecting heavy defenses around Krill 9. The Empire has gathered a sizable fleet to protect the planet. Zhang nodded, his eyes narrowing. They're learning. Good. It will make our victory all the sweeter. As the human fleet drew closer, the Empire forces came into view. Thousands of ships formed a protective barrier around Krill 9. On the planet's surface, massive energy cannons pointed skyward, ready to fire. Zhang turned to his communications officer. Send a message to all ships. Execute Plan Thunderbolt. Across the human fleet, captains received their orders. The massive armada began to split into 3 groups. The largest group, led by the Avenger, would engage the Empire fleet head-on. The second group would target the planet's defenses. The third, smallest group would slip through the chaos and strike at the heart of the military base on Krill 9's surface. As the distance closed, Empire ships opened fire. Energy beams and missiles streaked across space, a dazzling but deadly light show. Raise shields, Zhang ordered calmly. Return fire. The human ship's advanced shields flickered to life, absorbing the Empire's assault with ease. Then the humans struck back. Thousands of energy beams lanced out from the human fleet, each one finding its mark with deadly precision. Empire ships exploded left and right, unable to withstand the overwhelming firepower. Their own weapons seemed to bounce harmlessly off the human ship's shields. On the bridge of the Empire flagship, Admiral Zextor watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. Impossible, he muttered, his 3 hearts racing. How can they be this powerful? As the space battle raged, the second human strike force approached Krill 9. The planet's energy cannons fired, filling space with destructive beams. But the human ships were too fast, too agile. They dodged and weaved, closing in on their targets. Now, shouted the strike force commander, hit them with everything we've got. Human ships unleashed a barrage of specialized missiles. They streaked towards the planet, easily evading defensive fire. When they hit, they didn't explode. Instead, they burrowed deep into the cannon emplacements before detonating, destroying the weapons from the inside out. With the space around Krill 9 cleared and its planetary defenses crippled, the third human strike force made its move. Cloaked ships, invisible to Empire sensors, entered the atmosphere. They landed silently near the main military base. Elite human soldiers poured out, their advanced armor making them look like walking tanks. They moved with precision, neutralizing guards and sabotaging equipment. Within minutes, they had taken control of the base's command center. Back in space, Admiral John watched as reports of victory poured in from all fronts. The Empire fleet was in ruins, the planet's defenses were offline, and the military base was under human control. Sir, Captain Rodriguez reported, a note of awe in her voice, Krill 9 is ours. We've taken the planet with minimal casualties. Zhang allowed himself a small smile. Excellent work, everyone. But this is just the beginning. Prepare for the next phase of our assault. As the human fleet regrouped, a message was sent to Earth. President Elena Rodriguez read it with grim satisfaction. Krill 9, once a symbol of Empire might, had fallen in less than a day. On Zor Prime, Emperor Xok received the news with growing dread. He turned to his advisors, fear evident in his eyes. How? He demanded. How are they defeating our best defenses so easily? His chief scientist, a being of pure energy contained in a robotic shell, spoke up. Your Majesty, We've analyzed their technology. It's beyond anything we've ever seen. Their ships, their weapons, they're decades, maybe centuries ahead of ours. Thok slumped in his throne. What have we awakened? He whispered. As reports of the human victory spread across the galaxy, other races watched with a mix of fear and hope. The Empire, long thought invincible, was facing an enemy it couldn't stop. And this was only the first strike. The human fleet was already moving towards its next target, unstoppable and unforgiving. The galaxy held its breath, wondering what would happen next. The fall of Krill 9 sent shockwaves through the Galactic Empire. For the first time in centuries, fear gripped the hearts of Empire citizens. On countless worlds, people looked to the skies, wondering if the unstoppable human fleet would appear next. Emperor Xok paced in his war room on Zor Prime, his tail lashing angrily. "We must strike back," he roared. "Gather every ship, every soldier. We will crush these humans once and for all." His generals exchanged nervous glances. One of them, General Vrax, stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said cautiously, "the humans have already taken 3 more systems since Krill 9. Our forces are stretched thin." Xok's eyes blazed with fury. "I don't care. Call in our allies. Activate the reserve fleets. We are the Galactic Empire. We will not be defeated by some upstart species." Across Empire space, a massive mobilization began. Ships were pulled from patrol duties and trade route protection. Soldiers were called up from every world. For the first time in living memory, the Empire was fighting for its survival. Meanwhile, the human fleet continued its advance. Admiral Zhang Wei stood on the bridge of the EFS Avenger, studying reports from the front lines. Despite their victories, he knew they couldn't let their guard down. "Sir," Captain Rodriguez reported, "we're detecting a massive buildup of Empire forces in the Orient sector. It looks like they're finally mounting a serious counterattack." Zhang nodded gravely. "As expected, they're learning. Prepare the fleet for a major engagement." In the Orient sector, a vast armada of Empire ships gathered. It was the largest fleet the Empire had assembled in 1,000 years. Ships of all sizes filled the space around a massive space station, their weapons primed and ready. Admiral Zextor, who had survived the fall of Krill 9, was given command of this last-ditch effort. He stood in the control room of the space station, his resolve hardened by his previous defeat. "Today, we fight not just for the Empire, but for our very existence," Zextor told his officers. "We will show these humans the true might of the Galactic Empire." As the human fleet entered the Orient sector, they were met with a sight that gave even the most hardened veterans pause. Tens of thousands of Empire ships filled the space before them, easily outnumbering the human forces. On the Avenger, John's expression remained calm. "So they finally brought out their big guns," he mused. "This should be interesting. All ships, battle formation Delta. Prepare for engagement." The 2 massive fleets faced each other, tension building as they drew closer. Then, with a flash of energy weapons, the battle was joined. Space itself seemed to light up as thousands of ships exchanged fire. Empire vessels, fighting with desperate courage, threw themselves at the human lines. For the first time since the war began, the humans found themselves truly challenged. Explosions bloomed in the darkness as ships on both sides fell to enemy fire. The human technological edge was evident, but the Empire's sheer numbers began to tell. "We've lost Cruiser Group 7, Rodriguez reported, her voice tense. "Destroyer Squadrons 3 and 5 are taking heavy fire." Zhang's eyes narrowed. "Activate the Omega protocols," he ordered. Across the human fleet, hidden systems came to life. Ships that seemed damaged or destroyed suddenly reactivated, catching Empire forces off guard. Weapons of unimaginable power, held in reserve until now, were unleashed. The tide of battle began to turn once more. Empire ships, despite their numbers, found themselves outmatched by the humans' advanced technology. Admiral Zextor watched in disbelief as his carefully planned attack crumbled. "It's not possible," he muttered. "How can they still have such power in reserve?" As the battle raged on, news of the confrontation spread across the galaxy. On Earth, people watched with bated breath, praying for victory. On Empire worlds, citizens began to realize that their ruler's power was not as absolute as they had believed. The Battle of Orion Sector would go down in history as one of the largest and most decisive space engagements ever fought. It marked the moment when the galaxy truly understood the might of humanity. As the fighting continued, both sides knew that the outcome of this battle would shape the future of the galaxy for generations to come. The Battle of Orion Sector had raged for days. Space was filled with the broken remains of thousands of ships, both human and Empire. But as the dust settled, it became clear that humanity had won yet another victory. Admiral John Way stood on the bridge of the EF's Avenger, his uniform slightly disheveled, but his eyes burning with determination. "Status report," he commanded. Captain Rodriguez, looking tired but proud, responded, "Sir, the Empire fleet is in full retreat. We've taken control of the sector. Our losses were significant, but far less than the Empire's." Zhang nodded grimly. "Prepare the fleet. It's time for the final push. We're taking the fight to Zor Prime itself." As news of the Empire's defeat spread, many of its member worlds began to revolt. Races that had been oppressed for centuries saw their chance for freedom. The once mighty Galactic Empire was crumbling from within. On Zor Prime, Emperor Xok was in a panic. His advisors brought him nothing but bad news. "Your Majesty," one trembling official reported, "we've lost contact with a third of our worlds. The humans are advancing on all fronts. They will reach Zor Prime within days." Xok's scales had lost their luster, his forearms shaking with fear and rage. "How?" he screamed. "How could this happen? We are the Galactic Empire. We have ruled for 10,000 years. His chief scientist spoke up, his robotic voice eerily calm. "It appears, Your Majesty, that we gravely underestimated the humans. Their technology, their resolve, they are unlike anything we have ever encountered." As the Empire fell into chaos, the human fleet pressed on. They liberated world after world, freeing races that had suffered under Empire rule for generations. Many of these freed peoples joined the human cause, swelling their ranks with grateful allies. Admiral Zhang's voice echoed across the human fleet. "The end is in sight. The Empire killed one of our children. Now we will dismantle their tyranny brick by brick. For Emily, for Earth, for freedom." The journey to Zor Prime was not easy. The Empire threw everything they had left at the human fleet. Desperate last stands were made on a dozen worlds, but nothing could stop the tide of human vengeance. Finally, after weeks of hard fighting, the human fleet arrived at Zor Prime. The capital world of the Galactic Empire lay before them, its once impregnable defenses now seeming feeble and outdated. Emperor Xok stood in his palace, watching the sky fill with human ships. For the first time in his long life, he felt true fear. Perhaps we can negotiate," he said weakly to his remaining advisors. But it was too late for negotiations. The humans had not come to talk. The battle for Zor Prime was short but fierce. The Empire's home fleet fought with suicidal bravery, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Human ships broke through their lines with ease, their advanced weapons tearing through the planet's shields. On the surface, elite human troops landed near the Imperial Palace. They fought their way through the last desperate defenders, their path clear and their purpose unwavering. Admiral Zhang himself led the final assault on the palace. As he strode through the ornate halls, he thought of Emily Johnson, the little girl whose death had started this war. "For you," he whispered, "for all the innocents the Empire has harmed." The doors to the throne room burst open. Emperor Xok found himself face to face with the leader of the human forces. The once mighty ruler of the Galactic Empire cowered on his throne. "Please," Xok begged, "mercy. Zhang's face was like stone. "Mercy?" he asked coldly. "Like the mercy you showed a 6-year-old girl." Outside, human ships took control of Zor Prime's orbital facilities. Across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. The Galactic Empire had fallen. Humanity stood victorious. As the sun set on Zor Prime, Admiral Zhang sent a message to Earth. "Mission accomplished. The war is over. Justice has been served." The galaxy held its breath, wondering what would come next. The age of the Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun. The fall of Zor Prime marked the end of the Galactic Empire's reign. As news spread across the stars, countless worlds celebrated their newfound freedom. The galaxy entered a new era, with humanity at its center. In the days following the Empire's collapse, Admiral Zhang Wei found himself in the Imperial Palace, now serving as the temporary headquarters for Earth's forces. He stood by a large window, gazing out at the alien cityscape, lost in thought. Captain Rodriguez approached him, datapad in hand. "Sir, we've received word from Earth. President Rodriguez is on her way for the official handover ceremony." Zhang nodded, his face solemn. "Thank you, Captain. And what of Emperor Xalk?" "He's in custody, sir, awaiting trial for war crimes." The Admiral turned back to the window. "Ensure he faces justice, but remember, we're not here for revenge. We're here to build a better future." Across the galaxy, the aftermath of the war was felt on every world. Former Empire planets struggled to establish new governments. Some embraced democracy, while others fell into chaos. Earth found itself in the unexpected role of peacekeeper and mentor to these fledgling nations. On a small agricultural world at the edge of what was once Empire space, a family of settlers watched the news on a battered holoprojector. Mark and Sarah Johnson held each other close, tears in their eyes, as they saw humanity's victory. "Emily would be proud," Sarah whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Mark nodded, squeezing her hand. "Her sacrifice changed the galaxy. She'll never be forgotten." Back on Zor Prime, preparations for the handover ceremony were in full swing. Ships from across the galaxy arrived, carrying leaders of newly freed worlds. The palace, once a symbol of oppression, was transformed into a beacon of hope. President Elena Rodriguez stepped off her ship, greeted by Admiral Zhang and an honor guard. As they walked towards the palace, cheering crowds lined the streets. Beings of all shapes and sizes waved Earth flags alongside their own planetary banners. "Quite a reception," Elena remarked, smiling at the Admiral. Zhang's expression remained serious. "They see us as liberators now, Madam President, but we must be careful. Power can corrupt, even with the best intentions." The ceremony itself was a solemn affair. In the grand throne room where Emperor Xalk once ruled, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered. President Rodriguez took center stage, her voice carried across the galaxy by countless broadcasts. "Today marks not an ending, but a beginning," she declared. "The Galactic Empire is no more. In its place, we propose a new Galactic Federation, one built on principles of freedom, justice, and cooperation." As she spoke, holographic displays showed the proposed structure of this new federation. Earth would play a leading role, but every world would have a voice. It was a new concept for many, but one that was met with cautious optimism. In the days and weeks that followed, the galaxy began to heal. Refugees returned to their homeworlds. Trade routes were re-established. The enormous human fleet, once an instrument of war, now patrolled space to keep the peace. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Some worlds resisted the new order, preferring isolation to federation. Pirates and warlords tried to take advantage of the power vacuum. Earth found that maintaining peace was often harder than winning the war. 6 months after the fall of the Empire, Admiral Zhang stood on the bridge of the ESS Avenger once more. But this time, his mission was one of exploration, not conquest. "Sir," Captain Rodriguez reported, excitement in her voice, "we're receiving a transmission from an uncharted system. It appears to be a new spacefaring race. Zhang smiled, his first genuine smile in months. Open a channel, Captain. Let's introduce ourselves, properly this time. As the Avenger moved towards the unknown, Zhang thought about the long journey that had brought humanity to this point. From a single act of cruelty against a child, to the toppling of an empire, to the dawn of a new age of galactic cooperation. The stars stretched out before them, full of possibilities. Humanity had proven itself a force to be reckoned with. Now they had the chance to prove they could be a force for good. The future was unwritten, but for the first time in millennia, the galaxy looked to that future with hope.